You're listening to Beyond Monogamy, audio stories written and curated by me, Celeste Murray. These tales explore love in its many forms, passionate, imperfect, and beautifully non-traditional. While I may use AI tools to enhance the listening experience, every story begins in the heart. Now let's step into a world where love knows no limits.
Chapter 1. The Secret Affair. DeAndre watched Carmen pack her bags, preparing for another trip as a stewardess. He hated the way her job kept them apart for long stretches of time, but it also gave him the opportunity to spend time with Kayla, his mistress. Kayla had moved from Texas to California and had been living in the extended stay hotel that DeAndre managed for the past 3 years. DeAndre had been seeing her behind Carmen's back for all that time, carefully sneaking around and keeping their affair hidden. DeAndre was torn between his love for his wife and his desire for Kayla. He couldn't resist Kayla's beauty and passion, but he also knew that Carmen was the one he had committed to for life. As he watched Carmen zip up her suitcase, he couldn't help but feel a pang of guilt. Carmen noticed his expression and walked over to him. "What's wrong, baby?" she asked, placing her hand on his cheek. DeAndre hesitated for a moment, then shook his head. "Nothing. I'm just going to miss you," he said, forcing a smile. Carmen leaned in and kissed him, her lips soft and warm against his. DeAndre felt a rush of emotion, but he also knew that he would be seeing Kayla soon. As Carmen left for the airport, DeAndre's mind drifted to the secret life he was leading and the danger of getting caught. Little did he know, his carefully constructed world was about to unravel.
Celeste Murray here. I have a question for you. Is it ever justified to keep secrets in a relationship if you believe you're protecting someone? What role do you think distance and absence play in DeAndre's decisions? Leave your answers in the comment section below. Let's get on with the next chapter.
Chapter 2. Kayla's News. DeAndre felt a mix of excitement and nervousness as he walked towards the extended stay hotel after dropping Carmen off at the airport. He had plans to spend time with Kayla, his mistress, and was eager to be with her. As he walked through the lobby, he greeted the staff and made his way to Kayla's room. When he knocked on the door, Kayla answered with a bright smile. DeAndre's heart raced as he gazed into her beautiful eyes. They embraced, and DeAndre held her tight, relishing the feeling of her body against his. They spent the day together, lounging in the room and ordering room service. DeAndre felt a sense of guilt in the back of his mind, but he pushed it aside and focused on enjoying the moment with Kayla. As the day wore on, Kayla's mood changed, and DeAndre sensed that something was wrong. "DeAndre, I have to tell you something," Kayla said, her voice trembling. DeAndre's heart sank. He had a feeling he knew what was coming. "What is it?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "I'm pregnant," Kayla said, tears streaming down her face. DeAndre's mind raced as he tried to process the news. He had always been careful, using protection every time they were together. But accidents happen, and he knew that he was in a tough spot now. "What are we going to do?" Kayla asked, looking up at him with pleading eyes. DeAndre knew he had to act fast. He couldn't let Carmen find out about his affair or the pregnancy. He had an idea, but it was risky. "We'll figure it out," he said, putting on a brave face. "But we have to keep this a secret." Kayla nodded, and they spent the rest of the day discussing their options. DeAndre knew that he would have to figure out a way to move Kayla into their home without Carmen finding out. It was a dangerous game, but he was willing to do anything to protect his secret life with Kayla.
End of Chapter 2 questions. What would you do if you found out you were pregnant by someone in a committed relationship, or you got someone pregnant while being in a committed relationship? Should DeAndre be responsible for telling Carmen right away, or should he wait? Leave your comments below. We all
Chapter
wanna know.
3. DeAndre sat in his office at the extended stay hotel, staring blankly at his computer screen. He had a lot on his mind these days, and it was affecting his work. He couldn't concentrate on anything for more than a few minutes at a time. All he could think about was Kayla and their unborn child. He had to figure out a way to make things work between them, but he didn't know how. As he sat there, lost in thought, his phone buzzed on his desk. It was a text from Kayla. "Can we talk tonight?" she had written. DeAndre hesitated for a moment, but then he replied, "Sure." He knew they needed to have a serious conversation about their future, but he didn't know what to expect. That evening, Kayla arrived at DeAndre's apartment. They sat on the couch, looking at each other nervously. DeAndre could feel his heart racing as he waited for Kayla to speak. "DeAndre, I don't know if I can do this anymore," Kayla said softly. "I love you, but I don't want to be the other woman. I want to be with you, but I can't keep living like this." DeAndre's heart sank as he listened to her words. He knew that Kayla was right, but he didn't know how to fix things. He couldn't just leave Carmen, but he couldn't bear the thought of losing Kayla either. "I know, Kayla," DeAndre said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I want to be with you too, but it's complicated. I don't know what to do." Kayla looked at him, tears streaming down her face. "I can't keep waiting, DeAndre," she said. "I need to know where we stand. Are you going to leave her or not?" DeAndre took a deep breath and looked at Kayla. He knew he had to be honest with her, but he didn't want to hurt her. "I don't know," he said finally. "I need time to figure things out." Kayla nodded, wiping away her tears. "Okay," she said softly. "But please don't take too long. I can't keep living like this." DeAndre put his arm around her, pulling her close. "I won't," he promised. "I'll figure something out. I just need a little more time." DeAndre couldn't help but feel a little envious of Kayla's carefree lifestyle. She didn't seem to have any worries or responsibilities other than taking care of herself and their unborn child. He admired her resilience and independence, which were qualities that he found lacking in himself. He couldn't even muster up the courage to tell Carmen the truth about his affair with Kayla and the child on the way. As they walked down the street, DeAndre noticed how people looked at them. He wondered if they could tell that he and Kayla were more than just friends. He didn't want anyone to know about their affair, especially not his wife. He didn't want to hurt her or ruin their marriage, but he also couldn't bear the thought of giving up Kayla and their child. Kayla seemed oblivious to the stares they were getting from passers-by. She was too busy enjoying the sunshine and the fresh air. "Do you think we should start looking for a place soon?" she asked, breaking the silence. DeAndre hesitated. He knew that finding a place for the three of them would not be easy, especially since he didn't want to raise any suspicions with his wife. "I'm not sure yet," he replied. "We need to be careful and plan everything out before we make any moves." Kayla nodded in agreement, but DeAndre could sense that she was getting impatient. She wanted to be with him and start their new life together as soon as possible. He couldn't blame her, but he also knew that they had to be cautious and strategic. They continued walking until they reached a small park. Kayla sat down on a bench, and DeAndre joined her. They sat in silence, watching children play and families enjoy the warm weather. DeAndre felt a pang of guilt as he thought about the family he was about to betray. But he quickly pushed those thoughts aside and focused on Kayla. He took her hand and gave it a reassuring squeeze. "We'll make this work," he said. "I promise." Chapter 4. DeAndre couldn't stop thinking about Kayla and the pregnancy. He knew he needed to tell Carmen about it, but he was afraid of how she would react. He couldn't bear the thought of losing her, but he also couldn't abandon Kayla and their child. He decided to take a walk along the beach to clear his head. The cool breeze and the sound of the waves crashing against the shore were soothing, but they couldn't ease the turmoil inside him. As he walked, he saw a couple walking hand in hand, laughing and talking. He felt a pang of jealousy and sadness. He missed those moments with Carmen, the simple pleasure of holding her hand and sharing a laugh. He wondered if he would ever be able to experience that again. Suddenly, his phone rang, interrupting his thoughts. It was Kayla. "DeAndre, I need to talk to you," she said urgently. DeAndre's heart raced. He couldn't imagine what could be so urgent. "What's wrong?" he asked. "It's about the baby," Kayla said. "I went to the doctor and there are some complications. I need to go to the hospital." DeAndre felt a wave of panic. He knew he needed to be there for Kayla, but he also didn't want to raise any suspicion with Carmen. "I'll be there," he said quickly. "Just tell me where you are." Kayla gave him the name of the hospital, and DeAndre rushed there as fast as he could. When he arrived, he saw Kayla lying on a hospital bed, looking pale and frightened. He sat by her side, holding her hand, and tried to comfort her. Hours passed, and the doctors finally came out with the news. Kayla and the baby were going to be okay, but Kayla needed to stay in the hospital for a few more days for observation. DeAndre stayed by her side, sleeping in a chair next to her bed and sneaking out to check on the hotel from time to time. He knew he was taking a huge risk, but he couldn't abandon Kayla in her time of need. As he watched Kayla sleep, he knew he had to tell Carmen about the baby. He couldn't keep this secret from her any longer. But how could he face her after what he had done? Chapter 5. DeAndre was waiting for Kayla to arrive at the hotel after work. He had a surprise for her, and he was excited to see her reaction. He had been planning this for weeks and had been using his hotel connections to make it happen. Kayla arrived at the hotel and found DeAndre waiting for her in the lobby. He greeted her with a kiss and took her hand, leading her to the elevator. As they rode up to the top floor, Kayla couldn't help but wonder what DeAndre had planned. When they arrived on the top floor, DeAndre led Kayla to a door with a sign that read Penthouse Suite. He produced a key from his pocket and opened the door, revealing a luxurious suite with breathtaking views of the city. Kayla's eyes widened in surprise and amazement as she took in the opulent surroundings. She had never been in a place like this before. DeAndre had arranged for them to spend the night in the penthouse suite, complete with champagne, chocolates, and a hot tub on the balcony overlooking the city's skyline. DeAndre had planned every detail, from the rose petals scattered on the bed to the music playing softly in the background. He wanted to show Kayla how much he cared for her and how special she was to him. As they sipped champagne and enjoyed the view, DeAndre and Kayla talked about their future together. DeAndre told her that he wanted to move her into his home and that he was willing to do whatever it takes to make it happen. Kayla was hesitant at first, knowing that DeAndre was married and that their relationship was a secret. But DeAndre was persistent, and he promised to take care of her and their baby. He told her that he loved her and that he couldn't imagine his life without her. As the night wore on, DeAndre and Kayla's intimacy deepened, and they expressed their love for each other. In that moment, nothing else mattered except their love for each other, and they both knew that they would do whatever it takes to be together. Chapter 6. DeAndre sat at his desk, staring at the computer screen, trying to concentrate on work. It had been a week since Carmen left for her trip, and he had been spending most of his time with Kayla. He couldn't help but think about her even while he was at work. He had managed to get Kayla's room at the hotel upgraded to a suite, so she could be more comfortable. He had also started to think about how he was going to tell Carmen about their plan. He knew it was going to be difficult, but he had to figure it out. As he was lost in thought, his phone rang, and he saw that it was Carmen calling. He hesitated before answering, but then he thought better of it and answered the call. "Hey, babe," he said, trying to sound casual. "Hi, DeAndre," Carmen replied. "How are you doing?" "I'm good, just busy at work," he said, hoping she wouldn't ask too many questions. "That's good to hear. Listen, I wanted to let you know that my flight is going to be delayed by a few hours. I won't be getting back until late tonight." DeAndre breathed a sigh of relief. "Okay, thanks for letting me know. I'll make sure to pick you up from the airport." "Thanks, DeAndre." "I appreciate it," Carmen said, and then the call ended. DeAndre leaned back in his chair and rubbed his temples. He knew he had to tell Carmen about Kayla, but he didn't know how or when. The longer he waited, the harder it was going to be. He decided to take a break from work and go see Kayla. He went to the front desk and asked for her room number. When he got to her room, he knocked lightly on the door. Kayla opened the door, and DeAndre was struck once again by how beautiful she was. "Hey," he said, stepping inside. "Hey, yourself," Kayla said, smiling. "What brings you here?" "I just wanted to see you," DeAndre said, taking her in his arms. They kissed passionately, and DeAndre felt a rush of desire wash over him. As they made their way to the bed, DeAndre's phone rang. He ignored it at first, but then it rang again, and he knew he had to answer. "Hello," he said, trying to catch his breath. "DeAndre, it's me, Carmen. I'm at the airport, and my flight got moved up." "I'm going to be landing in about an hour," Carmen said. DeAndre's heart sank. He had completely forgotten about picking Carmen up from the airport. "Okay, I'll be there," he said, trying to sound calm. As he hung up the phone, he looked at Kayla apologetically. "I'm sorry, I have to go," he said, getting dressed quickly. "It's okay," Kayla said, understandingly. "I'll see you later." DeAndre rushed out of the hotel room and made his way to the airport. He couldn't help but feel guilty for leaving Kayla like that, but he knew he had to be there for Carmen. As he waited for her at the gate, he tried to compose himself, but his mind kept going back to Kayla. Finally, Carmen appeared, and DeAndre felt a wave of relief wash over him. He greeted her with a smile and a hug, but his mind was still elsewhere. He knew he had to tell her about Kayla.
DeAndre's journey isn't over yet, and neither is ours. Subscribe now and let's experience every twist and turn together.
Chapter 7. DeAndre woke up early, feeling uneasy about the events of the previous night. He got dressed quickly and headed to the hotel, hoping to clear his head and come up with a plan. As he walked through the lobby, he noticed Kayla sitting at the front desk, looking worried. "Good morning," he said, trying to sound cheerful. "Did you sleep okay?" Kayla looked up at him, and he could see the fear in her eyes. "No, not really," she said softly. "I'm scared, DeAndre. What if Carmen finds out? What if she hates me?" DeAndre took a deep breath, trying to remain calm. "We'll figure it out," he said, putting a hand on her shoulder. "I promise." He left Kayla at the front desk and headed to his office, feeling overwhelmed. He couldn't believe he had let things get this far. He knew he had to tell Carmen the truth, but he didn't know how to do it without losing her. He couldn't bear the thought of life without her. As he sat at his desk, he heard a knock at the door. "Come in," he called out. To his surprise, it was Carmen. "Good morning," she said, smiling at him. "I thought I'd surprise you." DeAndre tried to keep his cool, but his heart was pounding. "Surprise me," he repeated, trying to act nonchalant. Carmen walked over to him and put her arms around his neck. "Yes, surprise you," she said, kissing him gently on the lips. "I missed you." DeAndre closed his eyes, savoring the feel of her lips on his. He knew he should tell her the truth, but he couldn't bring himself to do it. Not yet. As Carmen pulled away from him, he knew he had to distract her. "Let me take you out to breakfast," he said, standing up. "My treat." Carmen smiled at him, and he knew he had made the right decision. They left the hotel together, and DeAndre tried to push the guilt from his mind. For the moment, he just wanted to enjoy being with Carmen. After a few more minutes of silence, Carmen finally spoke up. "DeAndre, I don't know what's going on with you lately. You've been distant, and I feel like you're hiding something from me. Is there something you want to tell me?" DeAndre's heart raced, and he felt a lump form in his throat. He knew he couldn't tell her the truth, not yet. "No, Carmen, I'm just stressed with work. I'm sorry if I've been distant. I promise I'll make it up to you." Carmen gave him a small smile, but DeAndre could see the concern in her eyes. He knew he had to be more careful around her. He couldn't risk her finding out about Kayla and their affair. As they finished their dinner, DeAndre tried to act as normal as possible, but his mind was elsewhere. He kept replaying the conversation in his head, wondering if Carmen suspected anything. Once they were back home, DeAndre watched as Carmen headed to the bedroom to change into her pajamas. He knew he had to act fast, so he quickly sent a text message to Kayla, asking her to meet him in the hotel room. As he left the house and made his way to the hotel, DeAndre couldn't help but feel a sense of guilt. He knew what he was doing was wrong, but he couldn't stop himself. He needed Kayla, and he needed the escape she provided. When he arrived at the hotel, he made his way to the room Kayla was staying in. As soon as she opened the door, he pulled her into his arms and kissed her deeply. For a moment, he forgot about everything else, and all that mattered was the two of them together. But as the night went on, DeAndre couldn't shake the feeling of guilt that lingered in the back of his mind. He knew he had to find a way out of the situation, but he didn't know how. For now, all he could do was hold on to Kayla and hope that things would somehow work out in the end.
Celeste here, and I have a couple questions for you. How close is Carmen to discovering the truth? What clues might she already have? Do you think DeAndre is underestimating Carmen's intuition? Do you think Carmen's decision to meet Kayla is rooted in openness or suspicion? Join the rest of the community in the comment section below.
Chapter 8. DeAndre's heart pounded in his chest as he approached Carmen with his proposal. He had never shared his wife's preference for women, but he hoped it would work to his advantage in this situation. He took a deep breath and spoke in a calm, controlled voice. "Carmen, I have something to tell you. There is a woman staying at the hotel that I manage, and I think you should meet her. Her name is Kayla, and I believe the two of you would get along very well." Carmen looked at him curiously, suspicion written all over her face. "Why do you want me to meet her? Is she someone you're interested in?" DeAndre's mind raced as he tried to come up with a convincing answer. "No, it's not like that. I just think you would like her, and she's new in town. I thought it would be nice for her to have a friend." Carmen looked at him skeptically for a moment before finally relenting. "All right, I'll meet her. But I don't see why you're making such a big deal out of it." DeAndre breathed a sigh of relief. He knew he had to play his cards right and not reveal too much too soon. He set up a meeting between Carmen and Kayla in the hotel bar, and he made sure to be there with them. As the night wore on, DeAndre watched with growing excitement as Carmen and Kayla hit it off. They laughed and chatted as if they had known each other for years, and DeAndre felt like his plan was finally coming together. Eventually, DeAndre suggested they all go back to their house for a nightcap. Carmen and Kayla readily agreed, and DeAndre led the way. Once they were all settled in the living room, DeAndre went to the kitchen to fix some drinks. As he worked, he listened with growing excitement as Carmen and Kayla's conversation turned more intimate. By the time DeAndre returned to the living room with their drinks, Carmen and Kayla were cuddled up together on the couch, whispering to each other and giggling like schoolgirls. DeAndre's heart raced as he realized that his plan was working even better than he had hoped. He sat down next to them and handed them their drinks, trying to hide his excitement. As the night wore on, DeAndre watched as Carmen and Kayla's relationship deepened, and he knew that his ultimate goal was within reach. DeAndre watched as Carmen and Kayla made their way up to the bedroom, his heart pounding in his chest. He had never imagined that things would get to this point, but now that they were here, he was excited and nervous all at once. As soon as the door closed, DeAndre made his way upstairs, eager to see what was happening. When he arrived at the bedroom, he found Carmen and Kayla already naked and touching each other's bodies. "Is it okay if I watch?" DeAndre asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Carmen looked over at him and smiled. "Of course, baby. But Kayla is all for me tonight." DeAndre nodded, taking a seat on the edge of the bed as Carmen and Kayla continued to explore each other's bodies. He watched in amazement as they kissed, touched, and licked each other in ways that he had never seen before. As they pleasured each other, DeAndre found himself growing increasingly turned on. He couldn't believe that this was actually happening, and he knew that he would never forget this moment for the rest of his life. When Carmen and Kayla were finished, they both collapsed onto the bed, panting and sweaty. DeAndre leaned over and kissed Carmen, feeling more connected to her than ever before. "Thank you for this," he whispered. Carmen smiled at him. "I'm glad you enjoyed it. But we need to talk about Kayla and what you're planning to do." DeAndre nodded, knowing that the conversation was inevitable. But for now, he was content to just lay there with Carmen and Kayla, feeling more alive than he had in years. Chapter 9. DeAndre watched as Carmen and Kayla's relationship deepened. He was relieved that his plan seemed to be working, but also found himself feeling more and more left out of their intimate moments. It was a strange feeling to see the two women he loved together, but not be a part of it. Carmen seemed to be enjoying herself, though. She spent more and more time with Kayla, and they grew closer with each passing day. Sometimes DeAndre would catch them holding hands or stealing kisses, and he would feel a twinge of jealousy, but he tried not to let it show. One night, as they were all sitting together in the living room, Kayla suggested they play a game of truth or dare. Carmen and DeAndre agreed, and soon they were taking turns daring each other to do increasingly risque things. It was Kayla's turn, and she turned to Carmen with a mischievous glint in her eye. "Truth or dare?" she asked. Carmen hesitated for a moment before choosing dare. "I dare you to kiss me," Kayla said, leaning in close. Carmen didn't hesitate this time. She leaned in and pressed her lips to Kayla's, deepening the kiss as DeAndre watched. He felt a pang of desire, but also a sense of displacement, as if he was no longer a part of their little triangle. When they broke the kiss, Kayla turned to DeAndre. "Truth or dare?" He chose truth. "Have you ever been jealous of me and Carmen?" Kayla asked. DeAndre hesitated before answering honestly. "Yes, I have. But I'm also happy for the two of you. I just sometimes feel left out." Kayla smiled at him. "Don't worry, baby. We'll always make sure you're a part of things." And with that, they continued playing their game, exploring their desires and pushing the boundaries of their relationship. DeAndre wasn't sure where it was all leading, but for now he was content to watch and participate as much as he could. The three of them lay in bed together, exhausted but satisfied. DeAndre was sandwiched between Carmen and Kayla, with each woman snuggled up against him. They lay there in silence for a few moments, basking in the afterglow of their shared experience. Finally, Carmen spoke up. "That was amazing," she said softly. "I can't believe how good that felt." Kayla giggled. "I know, right? I've never done anything like that before." DeAndre wrapped his arms around both women. "I'm so glad you two hit it off," he said. "I knew you would." Carmen nuzzled her head into his chest. "I love you," she whispered. DeAndre kissed her forehead. "I love you too," he said. Kayla leaned over and kissed him on the lips. "Thank you," she said. "That was incredible." DeAndre grinned. "You're welcome," he said. "I'm just glad I could make you both happy." As they lay there in each other's arms, the three of them knew that this was just the beginning of a new chapter in their relationship. They had opened themselves up to a world of possibilities, and they were excited to explore it together. Chapter 10. As soon as Carmen's flight departed, Kayla and DeAndre wasted no time in heading back to their home. The sexual tension between them was palpable as they entered the bedroom. Kayla couldn't help but feel a little nervous about moving in with DeAndre and his wife, but she tried to push those thoughts aside as he kissed her passionately. DeAndre could feel Kayla's hesitation and decided to reassure her. "Don't worry, everything will be fine. Carmen knows about us, and she's okay with it. We're all going to live together as a family," he whispered in her ear before trailing kisses down her neck. Kayla let out a soft moan as he continued to kiss her. She was excited about the prospect of living with DeAndre and Carmen, but she couldn't help but feel a little guilty about the situation. She knew that Carmen was DeAndre's wife, but she couldn't help the way she felt about him. As they made love, Kayla couldn't help but feel like she was living in a dream. The three of them were going to be together, and she couldn't wait to start their new life as a family. After they were finished, they lay in bed, wrapped in each other's arms. "Are you sure Carmen is okay with this?" Kayla asked, breaking the silence. DeAndre nodded. "Yes, she's fine with it. She's excited to have you move in with us. We're going to make this work, Kayla. Trust me." Kayla smiled, feeling reassured by DeAndre's words. She knew that the road ahead would be challenging, but she was ready for whatever lay ahead. As they drifted off to sleep, Kayla couldn't help but feel grateful for the love and support of her newfound family.
End of chapter thoughts. Is this triad built on shared love or shared avoidance? Can love flourish in secrecy, or does it begin to rot? Drop your thoughts in the comments and let's discuss.
As soon as Carmen called Kayla with the invitation to fly out to the Bahamas, Kayla's heart skipped a beat. She could hear the excitement in Carmen's voice as she described the crystal-clear waters and white sandy beaches of the Sandals Royal Bahamian Resort. Kayla couldn't believe that she was about to embark on a romantic weekend getaway with Carmen and DeAndre. Kayla was already imagining herself in a flowy sundress and oversized sunglasses, walking hand in hand with Carmen and DeAndre. She couldn't help but feel a bit nervous about the weekend, knowing that the attraction between her and DeAndre had grown stronger since she moved in with them. When they arrived at the resort, Kayla's breath was taken away by the stunning views of the ocean and the lush greenery. The warm tropical breeze brushed against her skin, carrying with it the sweet scent of the nearby flowers. Kayla and DeAndre stepped into the luxurious room at the Sandals Royal Bahamian Resort, and their jaws dropped at the sight. The room was spacious, with high ceilings and elegant, regal decor. The king-sized bed was adorned with plush white sheets and fluffy pillows. The balcony doors were open, allowing the gentle sea breeze to sweep through the room, and the sound of waves crashing on the shore filled the air. The room was tastefully decorated with rich fabrics and earthy tones, giving it a warm and cozy feel. There were elegant paintings on the walls and beautiful fresh flowers in a vase on the nightstand. The room was equipped with modern amenities like a flat-screen TV, an iPod docking station, and a mini fridge stocked with complimentary drinks. The bathroom was equally impressive, with marble floors, a large bathtub, and a separate walk-in shower. The room was also stocked with luxurious bathrobes and towels, scented candles, and high-end toiletries. DeAndre and Kayla couldn't keep their hands off each other as they walked around the room, admiring the stunning ocean view and the plush furnishings. Carmen watched with a smile, enjoying the sight of her lovers' desire for each other. As they reached the bathroom, Kayla grabbed DeAndre's hand and pulled him into the spacious shower, laughing as the warm water cascaded over their bodies. Carmen joined them, wrapping her arms around them both as they kissed passionately, their bodies pressed close together. The scent of the resort's tropical flowers filled the air, and the sound of the water hitting the shower floor was a soothing background noise to their lustful moans. Kayla's fingers traced over DeAndre's chiseled chest, relishing in the feel of his toned muscles beneath her touch. Carmen's lips brushed against Kayla's neck, sending shivers down her spine. DeAndre's hand slid down Kayla's back, pulling her closer to him as they moved together in the shower. The sensation of the warm water and the slickness of the soap heightened their pleasure as they explored each other's bodies. The steam from the shower fogged up the glass walls, adding to the intimate privacy of the moment. Their skin was slick with water and soap as they pressed against each other, the steam from the shower filling the air. DeAndre's strong hands roamed over both women's bodies, caressing every inch of their curves. Kayla and Carmen's bodies were a perfect match, their breasts pressed together, and their hands tangled in each other's hair as they shared heated kisses. The intensity of their passion was almost overwhelming as they explored each other, lost in their desire. Kayla moaned softly as DeAndre's mouth found its way to her neck, nipping and kissing along her sensitive skin. Carmen's hands slid down Kayla's back, tracing over her smooth skin and coming to rest on her hips. She pulled Kayla in closer, grinding their hips together and eliciting another moan from the young woman. Their bodies moved together in perfect sync, each touch igniting a fire within them that burned hotter with each passing moment. As they continued to explore each other, their movements became more urgent, driven by a primal desire that consumed them. Their breathing became ragged, and their moans grew louder as they gave in to the passion that had been building between them for months. They were lost in the moment, their bodies and minds consumed by the intense pleasure they were experiencing. Finally, as they reached the peak of their passion, they all cried out together, their bodies writhing in ecstasy. They clung to each other, their breathing slowly returning to normal, basking in the afterglow of their intense lovemaking. The shower continued to rain down upon them, washing away the evidence of their passion, but their memories of that moment would last a lifetime. They knew they only had a limited time at the resort, and they intended to make the most of every moment. Kayla couldn't help but admire Carmen's beauty. Her golden skin glistened in the sunlight, her curves accentuated by her stylish swimsuit. DeAndre, too, was looking fine in his swim trunks, his chiseled physique on full display. The sexual tension between the three of them was palpable, and Kayla found herself getting more and more turned on by the second. As they lounged by the pool, sipping on tropical cocktails, Kayla could feel the heat between them growing hotter with every passing moment. When they retired to their room that night, Kayla was more than ready to give in to her desires. As Kayla surrendered herself to the passion, she felt the warmth of DeAndre's body next to hers and the tenderness of Carmen's touch. The room was filled with the sweet fragrance of their love, a mixture of perfume and sweat, and the soft glow of the moonlight that filtered through the curtains. They whispered words of love and endearment to each other, their voices a soft melody that mingled with the sound of the ocean outside. The sensation of the silky sheets against their skin only heightened the intensity of their love, and they lost themselves in the moment. It was a moment of pure magic. The weekend flew by in a blur of passion and relaxation, but Kayla knew that the intensity of the attraction between her and DeAndre was only going to get stronger. She could feel herself falling deeper under his spell with every passing day, and she didn't know how much longer she could resist his charms. Carmen and DeAndre walked along the white sandy beach, the sound of the waves crashing against the shore, the warmth of the sun on their skin, and the cool ocean breeze in their hair. They found a secluded spot and began kissing passionately, their hands roaming over each other's bodies. Kayla watched from a distance, the sight of them together making her feel aroused. As they moved to the sand and continued their intimate moment, Kayla couldn't resist joining in, and soon they were lost in the intensity of their desire. The sound of their moans and the feel of the sand under their bodies added to the excitement of the moment, and they knew this would be a weekend they would never forget. Chapter 12. Kayla's heart was racing as she held the positive pregnancy test in her hand. She knew she had to tell Carmen about her being pregnant, but she never expected Carmen's reaction. As she pulled Carmen into the bathroom, Kayla's voice trembled as she said, "I'm pregnant." Carmen's eyes widened, and she looked at Kayla in shock. "What? How?" Carmen asked, her voice cracking with emotion. "I'm sorry, Carmen. I never meant for this to happen," Kayla said, tears streaming down her face. Carmen pulled away from Kayla and ran out of the bathroom, her mind racing with thoughts of betrayal and hurt. Kayla followed her, pleading with her to stay and talk it out. But Carmen was too upset to listen. She got into her car and drove away, leaving Kayla alone on the couch, feeling helpless and alone. As Kayla sat there, she couldn't help but think about how much she loved Carmen and how much she didn't want to hurt her. She didn't know what to do or where to turn. All she could do was wait for Carmen to come back and talk it out. Hours passed, and Kayla sat on the couch, lost in thought. She heard the sound of a car pulling up outside and hoped it was Carmen. She rushed to the door and flung it open, relieved to see Carmen standing there. Carmen's eyes were red and swollen from crying, and she looked at Kayla with a mix of anger and pain. "How could you do this to me?" she asked, her voice shaking. Kayla took a deep breath and said, "I'm sorry, Carmen. I never wanted to hurt you." Carmen shook her head and said, "How could you be so careless? How could you not protect yourself?" Kayla hung her head, feeling ashamed and guilty. She knew Carmen was right. Her and DeAndre had both been reckless for years before Carmen was involved, and now they were facing the consequences. Carmen and DeAndre spent sleepless nights trying to figure out what the future held for them. They discussed everything from their living arrangements to how they would handle the pregnancy, and they always came back to one thing: their love for each. Kayla looked up at Carmen with tears in her eyes, grateful for DeAndre's support. "Thank you," she whispered, feeling overwhelmed with emotion. The days that followed were filled with discussions about the future. They talked about moving to a bigger house, arranging doctor appointments, and making sure they were all prepared for the arrival of the baby. There were moments of doubt and fear, but they held on to each other and their love, and that was enough. Carmen and Kayla's love grew stronger as the pregnancy progressed, and they cherished every moment together. They talked about names and nursery decor and held hands as they felt the baby kick. DeAndre was always there, offering a strong and supportive presence that gave them the courage to face anything that came their way. Despite the challenges and uncertainties that lay ahead, Carmen, Kayla, and DeAndre knew they had each other. They were a family, and they would face the future together, no matter what it held.
End of chapter. Questions. Was Kayla wrong for revealing the pregnancy to Carmen without DeAndre present? What does Kayla's response tell you about her intentions? Drop your thoughts in the comments and let's discuss.
Chapter 13. The Baby Shower. Months had passed, and the excitement and anticipation of the baby's arrival were building. Carmen and Kayla had been preparing for the arrival of their little one, and they wanted to celebrate with a baby shower. They had invited their closest friends and family to the event, which was being held at their home. The decorations were beautiful, with pastel-colored balloons and streamers adorning the walls and tables. The room was filled with the sweet scent of freshly baked treats, and soft music played in the background. As guests began to arrive, Carmen and Kayla greeted them with hugs and smiles. They were both glowing with happiness and excitement, and the love between them was palpable. DeAndre was also there, proud and excited to be a part of the celebration. The guests brought gifts for the baby, and there were games and activities for everyone to enjoy. The highlight of the event was the cake, which was decorated with little baby booties and a tiny onesie. As the evening wore on, the guests started to say their goodbyes, and Carmen and Kayla were left alone with DeAndre. They sat on the couch together, admiring the gifts and reflecting on the day. "I can't believe we're going to be parents," Carmen said, tears of joy in her eyes. "I know," Kayla replied, taking Carmen's hand. "It's scary, but it's also the most incredible thing in the world." DeAndre wrapped his arms around them both, holding them close. "I love you both so much," he said, his voice filled with emotion. They all sat there for a while longer, basking in the love and happiness of the moment. They knew that they would face challenges and difficulties ahead, but they were ready to face them together as a family. Chapter 14. The birth of the baby. Carmen had been feeling uneasy for a few days now. As she sat on the couch with Kayla and DeAndre, she voiced her concerns. "I don't know if it's just nerves or what, but I keep thinking about the due date. It just seems off," she said, glancing toward Kayla. "The way you've been having Braxton Hicks, it feels like you're going into labor early." Kayla stood beside her, gently rubbing her growing belly. She and DeAndre exchanged a quick glance, their hearts racing. They had always known this might happen, that Carmen could eventually start piecing things together. They had hoped they could keep the truth buried, but now it felt like it was creeping to the surface. Kayla took a calming breath and reached for Carmen's hand. "Don't worry, babe. I'll make sure I take it easy," she said with a soft smile, trying to reassure her. DeAndre nodded quickly, masking the unease behind his eyes. "Yeah, we're all in this together. Whatever happens, we'll make sure Kayla and the baby are okay. It's probably normal." Carmen looked at both of them, her brows furrowing slightly. "You two seem nervous. Is something going on?" The question hit like a flash of lightning. DeAndre and Kayla locked eyes again, knowing exactly what she was getting at. If the baby arrived what Carmen believed was early, it would raise questions they weren't ready to answer, like how Kayla could have gotten pregnant before the three of them officially became a couple. Trying to recover, DeAndre forced a chuckle. "Babies come early all the time. It doesn't necessarily mean anything's wrong." Kayla nodded in agreement. "Every pregnancy's different. Maybe this baby just wants to meet us sooner than expected." Carmen gave them a long look, but eventually relented with a sigh. "All right, maybe you're right. I just want us to be prepared if anything happens." DeAndre and Kayla exhaled in quiet relief, thankful she didn't press the issue further. Still, the worry lingered. The secret had been heavy for months, and they both knew it was only a matter of time before the truth demanded space. As the weeks passed, the three of them grew more tense, dancing around the conversation they were all silently dreading. Yet life didn't stop for secrets. They attended doctor appointments, baby-proofed the house, and debated names over dinner like any other growing family. Then, 9 months after Kayla first told DeAndre she was pregnant, it happened. One quiet morning, Kayla walked into the kitchen, where Carmen and DeAndre were finishing breakfast. Her voice was calm but firm. "My water just broke." Within minutes, they were on their way to the hospital. Carmen held Kayla's hand through every contraction, her face a mask of fierce focus and concern. DeAndre stood by Kayla's side, whispering affirmations and rubbing her back as her body labored through the intensity. Hours passed. The room was thick with tension, but also filled with something else, a hope. And then, finally, the sound they had been waiting for filled the air, the soft, sharp cry of new life. Tears poured down their faces as Kayla held the baby to her chest. All the stress, secrecy, and uncertainty of the past months faded in that sacred moment. They were a family now, knit together in the most unexpected way, but no less real. That evening, as they sat in the hospital room watching their newborn sleep, Kayla looked at Carmen and DeAndre, her heart full. "Thank you," she whispered, "for staying with me, for loving me, for loving her." In the days that followed, the three of them adjusted to parenthood one small moment at a time, taking turns with feedings, midnight cries, and diaper changes. Their bond deepened in the quiet hours and messy moments of new life. They left the hospital together, baby in arms, stepping into the next chapter. It wouldn't be perfect. It wouldn't always be easy. But as long as they had each other, it would be enough. One afternoon, Carmen sat on the couch, gently rocking the baby in her arms, her mind wandering. She looked down at the tiny face bundled against her chest and muttered aloud. She came early, but not early enough to raise concern. The doctors didn't even mention NICU or say anything about underdevelopment. Her brows furrowed. It was like she was full term, but the dates don't add up. The words lingered in the quiet room, echoing like a puzzle piece snapping into place. DeAndre, walking in from the kitchen, paused when he heard her. Kayla, sitting nearby folding tiny onesies, froze. They exchanged a silent look, one they'd shared far too often lately. Carmen turned to them slowly. "Tell me the truth," she said calmly. "Was Kayla already pregnant before the three of us got together?" There was no more hiding. Kayla stood up, her hands trembling. "Yes," she whispered. "I was." Carmen's face went still, her eyes clouding with a mix of hurt and realization. She sat there, quiet, the weight of those words settling in. DeAndre moved closer. "We should have told you. We were scared. But it doesn't change how much we love you or this baby." For a long moment, Carmen said nothing. Then her voice broke the silence. "I can't say I'm not hurt, or that I'm not angry," she said, eyes misty. "But I see how much you both love me, and I love this baby. I just wish you trusted me with the truth from the beginning." Kayla stepped closer, her voice thick. "I'm sorry. Truly. We promise no more secrets. Not now. Not ever." Carmen nodded slowly, emotion trembling in her lips. "We're a family. Not a perfect one, but a real one. That's what matters." And just like that, through truth and forgiveness, their bond, though tested, held strong.
You made it to the end of the book. I have a couple questions for you. Do you think Kayla and DeAndre were wrong for keeping the pregnancy timeline a secret? Why or why not? How would you have reacted if you were in Carmen's position, finding out the truth after the baby was born? Do you think poly relationships require a different kind of honesty than monogamous ones? Why or why not? Again, if you've made it this far, be sure to hit subscribe because you never know when part 2 to the third wheel will be posted. As for now, drop your thoughts in the comments and let's discuss.